If they have reason to believe that Donald Trump is liable or vulnerable to criminal behavior, then they should say that. The speculation is simply endless over this, and it has become extremely damaging.
The first Trump presidency began with the Russian collusion narrative. Now we have its offspring, the classified documents narrative, and just weeks before the midterm, it's all the left can talk about.
So the fact that they were in an unsecure place that is guarded with nothing more than a padlock or whatever security they had at a hotel is deeply alarming.
The two narratives share in common the almost daily insinuation that Mr. Trump did something awful, though it's never exactly clear what it is.
We're left with more questions than we have answers, and it seems that they're multiplying.
Speaking in a brief, no questions allowed press briefing, Attorney General Garland explained the Justice Department's approach to the Mar-a-Lago search.
Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken.
And yet, by all accounts, far from being narrow in scope, the raid was expansive.
Part of the problem with the warrant is that it lacks particularity. I mean, this thing is unbelievably broad. It says that if you find a single document with any classification marking, you can take the whole box, and then you can take all the boxes that are there with that box.
The DOJ's rationale for the raid has divided into separate explanations. The first, plausible in theory, was that government national security specialists believed hypersensitive documents were in a room inside Mr. Trump's Florida residence. That is what's in the search warrant approved by federal magistrate Bruce Reinhardt: defense information or classified material. But speculation then morphed into a second rationale.
This has more to do with gathering documents relating to the January 6th investigation than it does with anything else.
The Justice Department opposes the affidavit's release.
Thank you.
Arguing that would compromise future investigative steps.
Thank you all for your questions, but as I said, this is all I can say at this time.
And so today, the void is filling up with rumor and congressional inquiries, while the Justice Department is suggesting their investigation could last for months, which sounds like Special Counsel Robert Mueller's nearly 2-year investigation into Mr. Trump and Russia.
There's really demands here for a greater degree of responsiveness. You can release parts of this affidavit. It has happened before, but more importantly, you can respond to these concerns. You can answer the questions.
Mr. Garland shows no appreciation whatsoever of the broader context of these events. The U.S. is on edge. At no recent time in history has its population been more divided or depressed. And so one has to ask, is this worth it?
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law, not even a president or a former president of the United States.
It is indisputable that no one is above the law, but there's also the useful notion of prosecutorial discretion, which often is about recognizing a larger public good. We're going through a kind of referendum on Donald Trump's future. Resolving that would be better left to the voters than to an attorney general already distrusted by about half the population.
I think transparency is what's going to lower the temperature. And I just don't see the exigent circumstances that require this step from a law enforcement perspective.
In an unusual burst of self-awareness, even Donald Trump told Fox Digital that the temperature has to be brought down in this country. If it isn't, terrible things are going to happen. He should know. A belief seems to exist in Washington that the U.S.'s appetite and capacity for political rancor is limitless. It is not, and a prudent attorney general would recognize that and shut this thing down.